What's going on? James? Is James there? Sounded like I heard James there for a second. I think James might be having some issues. We're going to let James work that out. And in his stead, we bring in E.
Hey.
Excuse me. What's going on with James? Just check back in.
So I'm paying attention now to the backgrounds and stuff.
Okay.
So don't you think we should 86 the Pugs and Parker?
This thing up here?
Well, no, just all that. Like, shouldn't we just change out to the Radio Misfits now?
Well, go ahead. Make us one. There you
go. No, right there where it says Pugs and Parker.
Right where? Where it says Pugs and Parker at the top of the screen. In an over. Parker just made it go away. Did you see how it just disappeared?
Yeah. So could we put Radio Misfits in there?
Well, if we can, sure. Yeah. Why not? Name change, all that stuff. Absolutely. What is Parker doing? Because he's obviously listening to us, because as you said that, he made it go away. And I know that he did it because I didn't do it. And he's the only other one with the power to make that happen. Parker, we've engaged you. Are you there?
Well, I can hear you and you can hear me. I just, the OBS that I run my camera through isn't launching for some reason. I don't know what the holdup is, and it's pissed me off. So.
Is that what it is? It's a camera shutter that we're looking at on the screen?
No, it's an icon for the...
It's his avatar.
Yeah, whatever.
See, there's my avatar. It's Coach Ditka.
Oh, you're just like a nuclear kind of signal?
In solidarity with my brother James, I will be going radio or video silent as well. Now look at this. Yeah, I'm gonna have my avatar, just like James. It's like it's radio.
I can switch it to just do this camera. Hang on.
Well, why? You don't have to. What's wrong with this? I so prefer radio. I hate the cameras. Oh my God. Seriously, I despise the cameras, James. Really, we can't just do a full show like it's an old-timey radio show.
Oh.
Gotta come on.
Cameras don't bother me. They're fine.
No, cameras destroy the art of storytelling. Camera absolutely wrecks theater of the mind. There is no art to this anymore because of fucking camera. You're not supposed to know what people look like. You're supposed
But there's also the trade-off, because how do we do the amazing topic that we did last night where we go through the 5 hottest chicks of when you were a teenager?
Well, you just talk about it. You make people use their imaginations. That's very, very special.
Well, it is also special, but it's also special if the guys that are, in the audience to this show can know what Sabrina from Breakin' 2 looks like, because no one can conjure that up off the top of their head.
Except everybody else with a phone in their lap with Google on it to do exactly the same. See, we could have been interactive in that way. Now, James, you're not going to win me over.
That's because you're jealous.
Jealous of what?
People that can tell stories and have pictures.
No, you're missing the point. If you have the pictures, you don't need to tell the story.
I can tell a story even though I have a picture.
Form. Oh, you are like probably the worst storyteller. How many times do we have to go over this? You obsess on details that have absolutely nothing to do with the story, but somehow pacify you and some insecurity you have in your retelling of it.
Well, I like to add the details because I feel like it gives color to the bouquet.
Yeah, look who doesn't know how to paint a picture. Way too much color. James, am I wrong?
Well, this is the guy who jinxed the Stars game last night. Should have done a show with us. Gotta go to that.
Well done. Well done.
It was just, I don't even know what to say.
He has such low regard for this thing that we do, James. This thing that we practice.
No. I was planning on calling in. I had told Keynote I was going to call in from the game, and I was there. And literally, I was so disgusted in the first 7 minutes. Like it was just pathetic. Like what type? Why that penalty?
He told Keynote, the guy who was on this show one day out of every 10, he told him that he would not be in last night. That's who he told.
Well, you were the one who told me to make sure that I recruited him on the show. So I gave him some responsibility. I said, hey, I'm not going to be there tonight. I'll call in from the show. You make sure you call in. Pugs wanted you to call in, and he's given you an assignment. And he wants to know about the 5 hottest chicks in your lifetime.
I gave you an assignment that you missed. You have no idea how that went last night. And James, if I do say so myself, I think that was a terrific show last night. Agree?
Oh, agreed. And
I'm sure it was in my absence. That's why it was good.
There's also the nice balance of audio and visual, because it was something that we couldn't do when we were on the Pugs and Kelly show.
It's kind of thing we did on the Pugs and Kelly show all the time. People just had to think about it.
The ability to pull up, just Google these images and pull them up in real time during the discussion, though, is an addition to the show that it's better. It's better than the audio.
I understand why it bothers him. Because he's a fabricator. And so when he fabricates, he can't get away with it with the picture.
Okay. James, just because technology allows you to do something doesn't mean that you should do something. See Google Glasses for a reminder of how, not always, just because we can do video, doesn't mean that it necessarily serves or supports what we're trying to do here. I don't like it. I think it takes away from all of the magic that radio once was. Does it allow you to do something else? Yes. Is it radio? No. We're doing something else now. I don't know what this is.
But look, the ability to have theater in the mind from the audio only format is amazing. It's amazing what you can do with audio only, but it's not preferable to the ability to have audio and visual. You sound like a guy who's defending silent movies. It's like, no, it's better without them being able to talk, and you just kind of formulate the dialogue in your head, and Charlie Chaplin's just kind of walking all black and white around.
If I was a mimic or a mime, I might defend the art of silent movie, but I'm neither a mimic nor a mime. What I am is a talk radio guy. A guy
who's doing a talk radio show, and you just happen to have a camera on you. And do you really think that people are tuning into what you or I or James or Keynote or anybody that's on this particular screen look like? No, they don't care.
I mean, they're not.
I mean, they maybe looked once or twice if they thought you or I were funny looking.
That's not what it's about. It's about the mystery. It's about, it used to be a more mysterious and interesting medium, and those things. And we're talking about radio. And the disconnect here that I think we're going through is that this is not radio. And I'm sitting here pretending like this is radio. And I'm upset that this isn't radio. And James, you're absolutely right. This isn't radio. This is something new. But I do miss that. The art of the storytelling from radio, the art of painting a picture, all of that stuff. Not knowing what the women on the air looked like, but fantasizing that they're all beautiful, and then seeing them at a remote and going, oh my God.
No, but look, that's not a fair comparison. The fair comparison is watching a football game is far preferable to listening to it on the radio. You can still do magical things, and if you're driving down the road and you are not available to watch the game, your eyes are occupied doing other things, it's amazing. The experience can still be amazing through the audio only format. However, it's still preferable to have both audio and visual.
Terrible comparison. No. A sporting event is something that is served greatly by your ability to witness it with your eyes. Radio and a story being told is not at all the same thing.
It's a sporting event.
What?
It's a sporting event.
What is?
Of a different type.
What is?
Radio. Talk radio.
Okay.
Okay. Well, why do I keep on getting dismissed, but James all of a sudden has a valid point? I mean,
you don't have a valid point. How's that?
I mean, people tune in to a show for a certain period of time, whether it's like a sporting event or it's like a Netflix series that you watch. People tune in for that type of entertainment.
Yeah.
On a daily basis. It's not concocted. It's not written. It's live entertainment, which is similar to sports. Like, you don't always say the right thing and make a basket.
I just don't want to get into a debate now about whether or not sports and listening to the radio is the same thing. I don't. That's
Well, I mean,
what you're trying to make
occasionally
me.
it's
James,
similar.
get me out of here. What do you got, James? I see you're sharing something.
All right.
And to answer
Angel's
Al's
probably
question, hold
Can
on.
I?
I
Yes,
want to
I'll
answer
answer.
Al's question.
okay.
I did not throw anything specifically on the ice, but I was there when a whole plate of nachos hit the ice, and I must say I was shocked. I had not seen that happen that early in a hockey game.
So the Stars lost, right? The Stars are kind of like on their way
Yeah,
out.
they lost 4-0. They're down 3-0 in the series.
Let me address Al here in the chat room. Pugs is a romantic. Nobody listens to old-fashioned radio anymore. Sorry to say, we are a dying breed. I still listen to Wheels with Ed Wallace on Saturday morning, but I'm 54. Yeah, they do. More people are listening to non-video radio than ever before. It's called podcasting. That's all. Podcasting is huge. So yeah, people are still just listening to audio only in more numbers than they ever have in the past. James, go ahead. What do you got?
Amel's probably a big fan of Fetty Wap. Amel, you a big fan of Fetty Wap?
Do you like the Fetty Wap?
You
No.
like it? The
No,
Fetty,
no clue.
the Fetty and the Wap.
Lambos, a 56 gram, 500 grams, though.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I swear I love it how she work the damn pole. Hit the strip club, we be letting bands go. Everybody hate who we just call them fans, though. In love with the money, I ain't never letting go. And I get high with my baby, baby. I just left the mall, I'm getting fly with my baby, yeah. And I get ride with my baby, baby. I be in the kitchen cooking pies for my baby, yeah.
I'd play that.
That's enough of that.
What's up with the white tank top? Is that like a uniform now on the street?
No, guys that are
It never
ripped.
never went away.
Never
It's
went
always-
away.
always
I
been-
never really thought about it as an urban thing. I mean, I know it as like, the old Italian guy
absolutely.
and stuff.
Well,
Why's it got to be urban?
what did DMX
We
wear?
just watched a hip hop video with a bunch of black guys. That's why. Specifically, I was talking about the urban setting.
All right. So that guy.
It's an undergarment.
That's what. Right.
Everybody wears an undergarment.
I've never worn a tank top like that in my life.
Well,
I've
you
always
don't
thought
have
it to
the
be
physique
ethnically
for
Italian.
that.
I've always thought it to be ethnically Italian. What are we getting at? I just watched a hip hop video with a bunch of black guys, and I realized, black guys wear a lot of white tank tops. I always thought of that as an ethnic. It's called a wife beater or a dago tee. See, so I didn't realize it had crossed over.
Wow.
Simple
See, and
observation.
I never saw it as a wife beater. I could see an Irishman drinking in it in his.
Well, that's when I think it was called a wife beater, but primarily it was the dago tee. It was worn by Italians. It was an Italian guy thing with the gold chain and whatever. Then I guess when a non-Italian wore it, it became a wife beater. And then, I guess it's now crossed over. James, what about Fetty Wap? Didn't mean to take us into the bushes, but Amel's down there with a magnet and he keeps trying to pull us in. Yes.
All right. So that's Fetty Wap. That's the 2015 song "Trap Queen." It was his first big hit that I'm aware of. I'm not the biggest fan in the world, but I did like that song. Still like it. And Fetty Wap's going to jail, for real jail, big time jail, federal jail, 6-year deal. Fetty Wap was part of a conspiracy that was trafficking in one shipment 220 pounds of drugs. They had a deal worked out to where they were moving just bricks, just big old fat amel-sized bricks.
Kilos.
Yeah.
Fetty Wap was a kilo only dealer.
I'm not aware of this distinction. So kilo only means he doesn't deal with anything smaller than a kilo, I assume?
Correct.
Cool.
Which is 1,000 pounds, or not 1,000 pounds, 1,000 grams, which is that package that you'll see when the DEA busts them. They're like, oh, well, they got, 240 kilos valued at X. So a kilo is that one package. It'll a lot of times have a brand name on it.
So this is interesting because this isn't like even when Nate Newton got busted or Michael Irvin gets busted in a hotel room with some ex and a hooker. He's in bigger trouble here, and he's probably going to do all 6 of these years because the scheme involved using actual postal service vehicles with hidden compartments. So this guy wasn't just like, I'm going to deal some drugs and move up the drug chain. This guy was part of like some sort of Ocean's 11 type crooked postal worker scam that's been trafficking. Yeah.
They ran a con.
Yeah. So now I'm starting to think. So this guy isn't a rapper who got rolled up in the drug thing. This guy probably was like Danny from Ocean's 11, but the Long Island, New Jersey
I
connection.
did see that he used the USPS, but I hadn't figured out or thought of how he might have used it differently than an other drug dealer. I just assumed they used that to roll up some charges on him because they could possibly prove that he used the service to send the narcotics.
Right, and so
I thought that was just an easier charge maybe to catch him on.
I know exactly what you're saying, and that's where they kind of trump up federal charges because he sent it via the post office, and that's a federal agency, so there's federal charges. Now, in the couple of stories I've read, that there was U.S. Postal Service vehicles that had hidden compartments added to them.
So then postal workers, I'm assuming, are also going to jail in this.
But yeah, there's a crooked mailman out there, a crooked mail truck driver of some sort. There's dude, corruption in the postal service overlap. The Venn diagram of corrupt mailman overlaps with corrupt hip hop stars. Now, I thought that was cool. Fetty Wap.
I knew a postman who, on his route, he also delivered weed, and he did that for like 30 years.
I just don't
Retired with full
understand.
bennies after being a weed postman.
He's a hero, is what he is.
I don't understand the benefit of hiding it in the truck. It seems a little weird.
Well, you're not going to get pulled over. They just wave you through checkpoints or something.
Like, I mean, I don't think cops are pulling over post office guys going, "Hey, let me go through your package."
Right, but also if the dude's running that route anyway, it saves you on gas money.
I wouldn't imagine that a municipal cop would touch a post
office. Yeah,
I could see him pulling over a post office. I mean, post office guys do drugs too, and they might be fucked up or something. I could see him getting pulled over,
but not going through the packages.
No. At that point, I see like all kinds of federal switches that need to be flipped and people that need to sign. You know what I mean? I can't see.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't understand the secret compartment on the postal truck. Like, that seems just like a problem. You know, how am I getting the drugs into the secret compartment, and for what purpose? Like, it seems like if I got the postal guy on the take, I'm going to give him the drugs, meet the postal truck, give him the drugs. He's going to stick them in there and drop them off wherever the hell he needs to. Why's he got to build a secret compartment?
Being fancy.
That seems weird.
You're being fancy. It just seems like more pro. James, what else is going on with Fetty Wap? He's only got one eye.
Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to his other eye. I am
Glaucoma. It's not a good street story. He was born with glaucoma in both eyes, and doctors after multiple surgeries could only save one.
Is that really? Is that true?
That's absolutely true. That is not a cool street story, but you know.
So you're born with glaucoma? I thought you had contracted that later.
Maxwell Jr. was born and raised in Paterson, New Jersey, born with glaucoma in both eyes. Maxwell revealed in a 2015 interview that doctors were unable to save his left eye and instead fitted him with an ocular prosthesis. He attended Eastside High School before dropping out in order to pursue his music career. Yeah, it's glaucoma. It's not. Born with it, yeah, to answer your question. I'm not all that familiar with glaucoma either, but apparently you can be born with it. Born with it in both eyes. Maxwell Jr.
When was the last time we had the conversation about these people who don't need the money, but they keep doing illegal stuff like this anyway? And what is their freaking problem?
I don't think we've ever had this conversation, but it's about greed. I see it everywhere all the time. I'm a big advocate for your bag of money. Know what your bag of money is. All the successful old men that I remember growing up that you could, hear little pearls of wisdom. That was it. Get your bag of money. And everybody had a number. Every grown man has a number. That's their bag of money. Now, if most people lived that way, I think that we'd have a really great competitive capitalistic society. But unfortunately, as James just pointed out, some people just don't have that number. It's just about more. I mean, Fetty Wap, you would think he's probably had, or at least on the verge of generational wealth. for him, his kids, his grandkids. You would think that, right? Without the drug bullshit. If he had just played the game straight. Because I don't even know this kind of music. And I know who Fetty Wap is. I remember the motorcycle accident. You know, my 14-year-old kid knows who he is and likes him. So he could have played this straight and, you know, been 41 years old in 10 years with a nice bag of cash and a house in Malibu. But no, they want more. I think it's just a sickness. I think it's a form of delusion that people don't have their number and they constantly want more, more, more.
All right.
Or is it the sex appeal of the lifestyle?
Well, but his lifestyle is as a major hip hop star. That's pretty sexy. Why does he?
But part of that
international
rapping,
drug career. You know, I don't get it.
right? But part of that rapping is rapping about the drug culture, is rapping about the street, you know, hard culture, the guys that are, you know, living and growing up on the streets. So I mean, is part of it like you're just a poser if you're not really involved in that culture?
No, not at all. I don't think.
I think there's a level of that.
Probably the most respected, although also crazy, but and awarded, and oh my God, he's a genius. Is Kanye West? Kanye West has zero street credibility. Kanye West comes from the south side of Chicago. Kanye West went to a magnet school for super rich kids that was probably 10 miles outside of the streets that he claims to have come from. Kanye West's mom was a college professor. I mean, so street cred, they don't need street cred. Kanye West was one of these Izod wearing khaki pants black kids. So, he wasn't exactly street hard.
I'm going to say there are kids or people will say that are gifted and talented and that, can go to these fancy schools in New York, Juilliard, something like that, where they can go to these types of schools that they're known for. And yes, those kids that are prodigies always seem to be able to circumvent the road to get to wherever you're going. But it seems like to me, as a white person that's watched hip hop that's predominantly black, the culture of hip hop seems like it raps about the lifestyle, and guys like 50 Cent that have been shot several times, those guys are more street cred than guys that have just never done it.
Is that what it still is, though? I mean, I don't even know if...
I don't know, but it seems like that's where it started.
50 Cent is a guy in his 50s. You know what I mean? 50 Cent was 30 years ago, and we all remember Gangster of 30 years ago. James, what's your take on this whole thing? You brought it up.
Well, there's more respect given to people who have street cred, but that's not necessarily a deal breaker. And street cred only goes so far because, like, do you think Eminem has really killed hookers because he raps about it? And do we expect him to have done that in order for him to? No. And there's there's different genres of rap, like sort of horrorcore rap. I don't know if y'all were familiar with Bushwick Bill back in the day.
Of course, the Ghetto Boys.
Yeah. So like he had a solo album that was about how he had like murder fetishes and he was like a psycho that killed the hookers and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's no different than like watching a Freddy Krueger movie. It's just scaring yourself for fun. And
it's Gwar. It's Gwar. If you're familiar with the metal band Gwar.
Oh man, that's a perfect metaphor. Thank you. Yes, it's Gwar. And so Gwar doesn't actually have to be from another alien planet infused with the power of rock gods in order to consume the energy of weak humans. That's just a bit, and that's okay.
So what was your answer to the question about greed? Or at least that's how I answered it about greed. What do you think it is that keep these people that have these successful careers? I mean, we see this a lot with professional athletes. They got a big bag of money from playing pro baseball, a children's game, and then they somehow screw it all up because they want to move, 10 bricks of coke.
Well, I don't think it's one thing. I would just like to know what it is for each of these people because it has to be something. And so for some guys, it may be that, they're getting high on their own supply, and these people that get a serious addiction to heroin or cocaine, Steve Tyler talks about one year he thinks he did $5 million worth of drugs in 1 year. Like he thinks that's between him and the band. That's what they spent on bags of drugs.
Probably.
Yeah, that sounds like an awful lot. But for some people, it's that maybe he has a gambling issue, and so he just can't keep up with the money that he owes these people, and so he has to do favors for them. Maybe it's something that he grew up doing. Maybe it was like the family business, and this was passed down from his dad or from his uncle or something, and he's just keeping the family business going, and he has some sort of sense of familial duty that keeps him doing this. I don't want to make it sound noble, but perhaps it's not just flat out greed. There seems to be the opening that sometimes it has to be more than greed. There has to be something else going on. It could be a pride thing. It could be this is what all his boys from the streets are still doing, and they call him a sellout if he quits.
Well, okay, greed is maybe an umbrella term for it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that plays in there. Ego plays into there. Personal narcissism, insecurity plays in there. But all of that becomes greed. The desire for more, more, more. You're right. There's probably, you can crack that nut and get it in therapy, and you probably find out all kinds of crazy shit about what motivates somebody to be driven to greed. But I think it is a delusion. I think that the person who has their number, I think that the old men that I remember talking about getting their bag, I think that those people are the ones that aren't delusional. They know how much they need to be happy. And if they get it, they're out. How much do you need to be happy? Or is it going to constantly be chasing the next richest guy? That's a delusion to me.
I don't think you're dealing or you're choosing to deal because you think by some stretch of the imagination you're going to become the next Pablo Escobar. Like I don't think that's your mindset in terms of greed. I think it's a lifestyle where not only do you have access to, we'll say, more money than usual, you have access probably to more women than usual. You have access to probably more
Yeah,
opportunities.
see, and I push back on all of that. If, let's say, you're an NFL wide receiver, I don't think you have access to more women than usual. Maybe money, but you're still,
If you're an NFL wide receiver, you don't think you have access to more women than usual?
if you simply by having your side hustle be a drug dealer. Yeah, I don't think that increases the amount of women that you can have sex with.
Well, but it's when did you become what? I mean, okay, if I started out as a guy who was in the hood selling
Well, okay, so yeah,
drugs,
you were already a drug dealer. You matriculated through a college system. You had a great 40 time. You get yourself in the NFL, and now all of a sudden you're a big NFL receiver who also happens to have 10 years in the drug game, right? I would say that in most cases in 2023, that guy is rooted out long before he gets drafted. He's already somebody who's that's why scouts. That's why every NFL team has a private investigation unit. A bunch of detectives and former FBI and shit who work for NFL teams who look into all these guys. So I see what you're saying, E, and what you're describing has happened. Sam Hurd. That's what happened with Sam Hurd, who was famously a Dallas Cowboy.
but he wasn't even really a drug dealer. He was a football player that tried to start dealing drugs and got caught.
No. His story, he had been involved in San Antonio organized drug dealing his entire life, his entire family, and he just happened to make his way into the NFL, and he decided, hey, maybe I can start selling a whole new revenue stream, whole new avenue, these skills. That's what happened with him, and he's the guy that brought a bunch of coke to a steakhouse and tried to sell it to an FBI agent. Cowboy and Bear, Sam Hurd. He's out of prison, by the way. He just got out of prison and is back in San Antonio.
Yeah, but I thought the way I remember it was he first started out just not even, he got kind of put up to it in some transaction with the Sting, I thought.
Well, his defense was that he was an innocent little bunny, but that's not the real story. I mean, okay. I know someone who's a very good friend of his who, I have the whole story. I don't know if you remember the commercials for the local.
Yeah, no, I remember that, and I remember the time period.
He was on our show every Thursday, but I didn't know him like that. Bob did. I've heard the story. I've heard I've heard the story that differs from the defense, and the defense didn't work anyway because he went to jail.
Right.
So they were like, Whatever. Hey guys, I wanted to talk about something here really quick because I had a nice experience today. I had to go up to my kid. My kid got honored. My kid got my kid. My kid. It's the end of the school year, so all these things are happening. And he's in the 8th grade. It was an academic and president's award. He got a couple of nice little certificates. It was a cool thing. You guys get the opportunity to go to more of these kids events at schools than I do. Now, I was at a gymnasium today, 2 o'clock, probably 400 or 500 people in there. It was jam packed.
So was this graduation for 8th
No,
grade?
no. This was AP honors and presidential awards ceremony. So it was like
AP as in Associated Press?
as an advanced placement, as in like for
Oh.
straight A kids and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So so he got his awards and all that stuff. But now, I know you go to a lot of stuff with Dom. You get to do that, and James, you've got like 50 kids, so you're probably in a school gymnasium just about once a week at least. I noticed something that struck me as so odd. We're up here in Plano. Okay, it's 2023. It is May of 2023, for crying out loud. There were still like a whole bunch of kids in this school wearing masks. What is that about? Have you guys seen that? Or is this just something? Because I still see someone wearing a mask in a Kroger or in a Target, and I just assume, well, they're probably sickly or whatever, that's for their own thing. But these children, I don't understand seeing a bunch of 6th and 7th and 8th graders still among their classmates, hundreds of their classmates who are not wearing masks, still walking around. Do you see this in large gatherings in Highland Park?
I do, but I believe it's more prominent with certain ethnicity.
Okay, what do you mean? What's your observation?
I believe that more Asian and more Indian people wear masks than regular white
Thank
people.
you. That is exactly the observation that I was just going to make, because a large percentage of, I would say maybe if there were 500 people there, maybe there were 25 people wearing masks, right? And let's say 15 of them were kids. I would say 10 of those kids were Asian kids or Indian kids. James, how about you out in Bug Tussle?
Oh, zero. No, zero. None. I've gone to a bunch of award ceremonies and kids getting certificates and crap, and no, not one person disappearing over the horizon for the last year and a half that I've lived here has been wearing a mask.
What do you think that's about?
What?
Okay.
The masks? The masks?
Yes,
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, because you're the one who just
I
put out
mean,
there
I
that you
think
believe that it's something you see more commonly with Asian people. I agreed with that. That was an observation that I had today myself. Why do you think that is my question to you.
well, because you're going now to countries that are hugely overpopulated. And I would say the people that started wearing masks before COVID were predominantly Asians.
Yeah, that's what I think so too.
That I saw.
I think it's something that they were used to in their old country, maybe their parents as first generation or immigrants. And when they came over here and suddenly people were doing it, they just never went back. They just stayed with it. They're like, well, we've been doing this since we were kids anyway. Because you see that all the time in Asian countries.
Yeah, and so now you have the two countries that are the most overpopulated, Asians and India.
Yeah.
And they're going with people that come over here, and they probably have relatives that come in and visit and this and that and go back and forth. I just think masks are probably more predominant and more widely accepted.
But it's the young people that I found interesting. I found that
Well, but you've got elderly people at home with young people, so they're sending them in with a mask because they don't want them to come home and get the elderly Asian or the elderly Indian sick.
Al says, I noticed that too at my daughter's award ceremony. However, Leslie says, I don't see any masks at our elementary school now. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it just depends on where you are. But I was struck by the ethnicity, and I'm glad you went there first, because that was the very first thing that I noticed. I was like, these are all like Asian and Indian kids. Why are they still wearing masks?
Well, I see. I don't feel the ethnicity difference there, because for me, masks were weird because for the first couple of years, or really for the first for the first 2 years of all this, I was constantly going back and forth between living in New Orleans. And I don't mean the New Orleans area. I lived in the New Orleans city limits and worked in New Orleans. Um, and then I would come over here to Bug Tussle, and people in Bug Tussle stopped wearing masks. About 90% of them stopped wearing masks in around May of 2020. And so there was a weird time where you would
Thanks for that. God.
what?
Around May of 2020, about 3 months into the pandemic, that's when Bug Tussle was out.
Yeah,
They were out.
after-
Thanks, Bug Tussle.
yeah. Bug Tussle was in for about 2 months, and then they were like, "This is dumb." And so my whole world would go from no one wearing a mask when I go into a gas station or a restaurant, or no one's wearing a mask, and then I would go back to New Orleans where everyone's wearing a mask. And my kids have to wear a mask to school, so it was never an ethnicity thing to me because it was white, black.
Population thing. You went from where there was population to where there was no population.
Yeah, and so that kind of overlaps. I thought that was very intuitive. What E just said about the cultures that seem to be more mask adjacent are the heavily populated, the densely populated Chinese and Indians, and it's a good point. Maybe that does have something to do with it.
I did.
Well, I mean, think about New York City and the amount of people that died, and the way that people were stored during COVID. I mean, they had them stored in Central Park, in refrigerated cars and stuff like that.
We're not getting in a wet market thing again, are we?
Well, no, but I'm just saying the masses of people that died in cities where people are living on top of each other, I think is indicative of why they wanted people wearing masks. And that then comes again from cultures that were, Asia and China before, or Asia and India before.
There was a Oak Forest Hospital, part of the Cook County Hospital system there on the south side of Chicago, had a giant back area, and there were like probably 50 CDC warehouse trucks that was being used to store bodies from the Chicago morgue overflows and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, where there were people, there were deaths, but out in rural America, a little bit safer. When your nearest neighbor's 5 miles away, and you run around with the same, I don't know, 2,000 people in your town? I mean, the odds are down. But the people who live, stacked on top of each other, who are 15 asshole to elbow in an elevator every morning, you know what I mean? That's where you got to work.
Well, in the same stairwell.
Yeah.
You know,
gotta work.
I mean,
Close
the
proximity
same.
to other human beings during a pandemic is a really big driver of said pandemic.
Yeah, we don't have any elevators or stairwells really out here.
No, not like a 50-story New York City building. No, come on, James.
I know. I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, I thought you were being snark.
Well, even just going to take out the trash in a high rise.
That's one of the benefits of being rural, is that there are people who seek out that, who like not they like the small, they like the slower, they like the and then there's other people who need to live on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. I don't know what that's about. Just people are different. I believe Depeche Mode sang about it. Hey, I did something. I got kind of in trouble. I was a bad dad because I was trying to be cool dad. You guys ever try to be cool dad? James, you probably don't have to worry about this because you got 4 kids. It doesn't matter if they think you're cool or not, because one of them will. One of them's gonna really totally think you're cool, even if the other 3 think you're a dork. And
You say he's got the odds in his favor.
What if his kids is gonna just look at him like he hung the moon his whole life? And
I don't know. I could try and be cool, but I still care. It's gonna hurt my feelings when they tell me I'm a dork one day.
Yeah, well, I only got one. And he's got to think I'm cool. So, and Eve, maybe you're in the same boat as me, but I did something wrong. So, my partner Kelly and I, we invented a game for auditorium settings when there's a whole bunch of people and there's a speaker and then the speaker stops and then everybody claps. So my partner Kelly and I invented a game to kind of kill the monotony of these horrible corporate events that we used to find ourselves in. It was called the clapping game. And basically, clap death or death by clapping, it's had a couple of different names. But essentially what you're trying to do is when everybody says, and let's have a great next quarter, and everybody goes, and everybody in the audience claps, be the last person to clap, okay? Now, this game only works if there's at least 1 or maybe 2 or 3 of your friends scattered throughout the room also playing that game. Okay, so do you see where the problem gets in? After it is appropriate for there to be any clapter, there still might be you and your buddy across the room trying to be the last one, and it's very edgy. So I introduced that game to my son today at his award ceremony, and let me tell you, him and the 8th grade boys ran with it, and it was very awkward.
Oh, man, they keep going for minutes.
My son
All right, listen.
because I was there and he was showing off for me, and my son got a glaring at by the principal. It was, I mean, everybody in the auditorium was looking at, who is that? Who just clapped out of nowhere? Because he was trying to be the last one. It wasn't appropriate anymore, and yet he just went real loud. And everybody's looking at him, and so I was trying to be cool dad, and I turned out to be a bad dad.
Well, I mean, at least it wasn't high school.
Well, I don't know. It's even worse. Yes, James, what do you got?
Oh no, I'm familiar with that game, and we used to do that in school assemblies as well, and it had horrible results.
Oh boy, it's so.
I've never played it. I would have liked to play it. I got in trouble at graduation, and it wasn't the clap game, but I still think it would have maybe been cooler.
Here,
What's
at
it?
2:38. Here's the text that I sent my son. Back it off. Principal is watching. Because he was seated like 10 rows away from me, and he was clapping. He was being real obnoxious, and I saw the principal looking, and I'm like, all right, knock it off, man. Come on. I don't want to be the one that introduced this. Because if he got in trouble, he'd go, but my dad, you know what I mean? It would totally fall on me. And I'd be like, well.
Yeah, you think he'd blow you under the bus like
100%.
that?
100%.
Oh, my gosh.
100%.
So there was an adjacent game that me and my friends played in Bug Tussle called Last Word, where if one of us spoke up in class, the whoever got to say the last word would win, right? So we would just be talking to Miss Baker's class about, so what does that mean when Beowulf kills Grendel's mom by ripping her arms off? And so I raised my hand. And I'm like, well, clearly that's a metaphor because, when he was fighting Grendel, XYZ happened. And then Scott would raise his hand. He's like, but actually, I think this is more analogous to the next chapter when he's fighting the dragon. And then Jeff would raise his hand and he'd be like, no, see, because the author just likes to do the same pattern over and over. And so we would all try and just keep talking until Miss Becker would go, shut up! So there was like 6 guys that were in on it, and this was in like the honors class, and so this is about as bad as hijinks would get.
I don't believe that story at all. Least of which that you're learning about old English epic poems in Bug Tussle. You're learning about Beowulf in Bug.
Dude, that's fresh off the presses in Bug Tussle. That's a new book.
Yeah, I guess so. All right.
It's the contemporary. It's in the nonfiction
You
section.
started telling that story. My first thought was, they're not learning about Beowulf, are they? Nobody's learning about Beowulf. Nobody's learned about Beowulf in American schools. Elementary, that's college level. That's or maybe 1950s.
Bro, we learned about Beowulf
Did you?
in high school.
Man, we did.
Yeah. All right.
God.
I have another report from Bug Tussle. This is going to be a quick one, but I think you'll like it because these stories just blow my mind. I have no explanation for it. I find this very embarrassing as a man because women don't do this. Go ahead, read it for me there.
It says Lufkin man accused of using cell phone to make woman's restroom recordings. Yeah, that's a
guys. Can with all the transgender, battle of the sexes debates going on, I really feel like guys just can't stop shooting themselves in the feet with idiots like this because women are not doing this. Women have never left a camera in the men's restroom trying to catch us go to the bathroom. Not in the history of human beings. I'll go back to the invention of the camera. Not
you don't
one.
know that to be true. I understand the emotion behind the statement, but there's probably the exception that proves the rule. But yes, this is a guy's thing. This is a male perverted dominance, ownership, property kind of vibe. Yes.
Well, I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm saying it's less than 1%.
Absolutely.
It's probably like, okay, there's probably been some guy in Florida that made a raft full of trash and tried to row to Cuba, right? But that's not what the traffic mostly is, right? So I don't understand this, and I don't understand feet. Guys who are really into feet, and I know guys that are really into feet, and I have no answer for that, and that bothers me. Like why? There's no explanation for these dudes.
Man, for a dude who comes from a town of like 16 people, you know a lot of bizarre folks. You got a foot fetish friend? You got, what do you know, like 30 people? You got a foot fetish friend. Who's it? Is this Dell? This is Dell, isn't it?
No. Dell's not really.
Dell's into some kink, if I recall correctly.
So
why are you laughing? Why you don't want to go into the depths of Dell's depravity?
No, I don't know. I don't think I've ever really, classified it like this. But the two closer friends that I have that are really into feet, they're not foot fetish guys like they get arrested sniffing chicks' feet at Payless, but they always talk about feet, and they ask their girl to wear wedges when they go on dates. I'm like, well, you care what your girlfriend wears on dates? They're both black.
Oh.
I didn't think about the racial component of that, but I didn't think about the Mexican component being heavily Asian. But
first of all, I want to stop you. You said something. You don't care about what a girl wears on a date. I absolutely care. I like a girl to have style. I don't give a shit.
No. On her feet. Feet.
I don't know. I'm gonna trust her. That whatever if I think she has style, I'm going to trust her feet. Yeah.
I'm still stuck at getting arrested at Payless for sniffing someone's feet.
Yeah, that's the extreme level of the foot fetish guys, the guys that get arrested for it.
How does that occur?
I have no answer for it. It's like the toilet cam man. I do not understand like how that even overlaps with
But how would I get arrested for smelling someone's feet? Like, what am I going to dive at their feet?
We could probably pull up any number of news accounts with all the different details of how these individuals, but it's something that happens shockingly frequently, James, right? There's always a foot guy.
Like, are you going in the locker room and sniffing shoes?
Maybe.
Well, look, there's a nice spice of variety across the episodes of Florida Stories that you could check out. The foot fetish guy turns up every once in a while there. And it's funny because, just like if you're, into children, you want to be around professions that put children in front of you. These guys end up working at shoe stores. These dudes that are into feet, they end up working in professions that put them around feet. And so you end up in weird situations here where a lot of it is mall based. And I don't know. Some of them get inventive, like they pretend to be working at the shoe department in Dillard's, but there is no employee for the shoe department at Dillard's. They just want to try on. They just want to.
He's working at the shoe department at Burger King. Come on in. Would you like to try? Dateline, Kansas City, Missouri. KC man with alleged foot fetish charged with sexually abusing women. So here's one. And James, this is a 23-ish, I would say. 23, between 23 and 26, something like that. Mid-20s. Black man. Another black guy.
Brother
Into the foot fetish thing. An alleged foot fetishist has landed, a Kansas City man behind bars after prosecutors say he tricked two women into letting him touch their feet in a mall. So maybe he was tricking them, doing selling shoes out of the trunk of his car. Ooh, that sounds like a gig for a foot fetishist.
What did he get? How? Still don't understand what he did wrong.
Well, okay. Stephen Richardson, 23. Look at that.
Steven.
Oh, that's Stephen. Stephen Richardson, 23, is now charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of second-degree sexual abuse. 2 women claim that Richardson took advantage of them, while prosecutors revealed he was most recently working at Legoland in the mall. So he's at Legoland. All right. He's around a lot of feet at Legoland. You got to take your shoes off to run around on the Lego things, maybe?
God, I hope not.
I would hope not. That would hurt.
Court documents show that it all began. Legoland has little to do with where it began. Court documents show it all began at Linda Vista Apartments. Family members and friends told Fox 4 that Richardson often stayed at the apartment complex with a friend, while prosecutors allege that's where he sexually abused women's feet. Okay, so he's crashing in an apartment with a whole bunch of deadbeats, and while they're sleeping, he's molesting their feet. Good night, everybody. Totally normal. Nothing wrong wrong with
All right,
being
so-
sexually excited by feet. That's weird.
So I have
in an apartment, I can see it.
I have seen all ethnicities go through the foot fetish. This isn't like exclusive or endemic to black culture. There's been plenty of white guys. I've seen Hispanics. I have seen Asians. I'm not sure if I've seen Indians, but I hadn't been keeping that tight of a score. One thing I will note is that none of them have been women. This is an exclusive perversion among men only. And man, there's just something wrong with dudes that's not wrong with women.
I agree. Here, let me bring this guy to your attention. Samuel Creed, James, Dateline. This one comes out of Portland. A man with a foot fetish has been jailed for 2 years after he was caught touching 2 women's feet on a train. Apparently, James and Emil, he would go under the seats on his belly, and as their legs dangled under the chairs, he would fondle their toes and suck them.
Well, that's assault.
Yeah, I think so. Here, but we got to get a look at this guy because I think that here, hopefully this will work. I think that a mugshot pretty much tell us all we need to know about this feller.
Ah, there he is.
There you go.
Bypassing that old radio.
There you go. We're not doing radio. We're doing a video stream. Look at him. Does he look like he'd be on his belly sucking women's toes on trains? He sure does.
He
does.
If I found that at the end of my toe, I would feel assaulted.
Yeah, that's not normal. He looks like yeah. All right, I'm thinking the toe sucking is maybe just I don't know.
No, toe sucking is a problem because you're putting saliva on another human.
But my point is, looking at my man's picture here, I'm thinking that the toe sucking may just be the result of a much larger problem he's got in his life. Like maybe there's other things going on that lead to him sucking toes, that if he could maybe cut out those first things, he wouldn't have the toe sucking problem. I'm saying he looks like a junkie. He looks like a meth head. He was all... James, what do you got?
All right. Another funny update from Bug Tussle. Are you ready for another one?
Love him.
This is a problem none of the schools in Dallas have. And, you know, I lived in New Orleans for the last 16 years. None of the schools ever had this problem either. Listen to this, man. You never even heard of this. If I can hit play. Trying to hit play. Let me go down a little bit.
Tonight, the date of graduation for Marlin High School seniors remains up in the air after the district found a majority of them did not meet requirements.
The district did tell parents this afternoon, though, that the previously scheduled graduation practice will take place as planned tomorrow. News 10's Alex Fulton talked with frustrated seniors and parents who want some answers.
Salvador Guerrero's family is coming from outside the country just to attend his senior graduation.
So we have family traveling from Mexico, which, if anybody knows, it's not cheap.
The Marlin High School student is one of 28 students who are not eligible to graduate, hearing the news just days before Thursday's graduation.
I get a phone call and he's like, your son will not be graduating.
Now district officials say they're considering...
Did you see the math? Did you hear the numbers there?
No. What?
I'm sorry. I'm just going to skip it because I can't stop laughing. It's a 3-minute package and I can't wait. There's 33 kids in the senior class and only 5 of them passed.
Where's this?
So they canceled the whole graduation.
So that kid was a kid who was going to graduate because he did at least the bare minimum, and he was one of the 5 that was going to graduate. Where was this at? Where?
Marlin.
Where's Marlin?
It's in the Waco area. It's like kind of east, maybe a little southeast of Waco. It's a joke of a school district though, because yeah, I know I did a morning.
Why
show.
is it a joke of a school?
Well,
district?
because of that. Let's start with.
Yeah. How
well,
about?
I mean, I get that their kids are doing poorly, but there's got to be something that's driving that. I mean, is it related to COVID? Is it related to?
No, listen, I did a morning show for a few years when I was living in New Orleans. It aired in Waco, and so it was a Waco-centric morning show. I never lived there. But Marlin was the place that had all the funky news stories. Like when I was in New Orleans, that place was St. Bernard. You know, and when you're in Dallas, that place is kind of really mesquite. You know, if someone blows up a meth lab or something. So it's just a place of just
I
failed
don't know,
people.
man. McKinney clocks in pretty hard. McKinney's got a whole lot of nonsense going on up there lately. But go ahead, continue.
You know what? McKinney might be closer because they had that raucous pool party with the viral video of the cop like body slamming teenage girls and
Every
stuff.
crazy national story about something embarrassing in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex comes out of McKinney.
Right, and that
Everything on Inside Edition,
I
or
mean,
whatever, it's always McKinney.
But look, when you only have
Cheerleaders.
33 kids, when you only have 33 kids in the senior class, every once in a while you're going to have a fluke year where you only have 5 that pass. You know, every once in a while, not even half of them pass. Not even 1 out of 6 of them pass.
So what do we think? Do we like?
that's the school's problem.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Well, it's parents' problem now.
Well, yeah, but when I see that, I mean, that wide of a disaster as far as your graduating class, that wide, that can't be the parents. Every single parent in this community cannot be shit. So what is the school? What is happening at this school? We're only, you know what I mean? Unless
They had
shit.
what-
Are these all meth head kids? Are their parents living in trailers and fucking goats? You know what I mean? I don't like what is happening here because I don't know if it's too many for it to be all the parents. I don't believe.
Well, and it's too many for it to be the kids. It's something
See,
that's.
I think it is just the right amount to be the kids. I'm wondering why are these kids such fuck ups? These kids who can't graduate a basic Texas high school curriculum are fuck ups. So the question becomes, why are they fuck ups? Is it the parents or is it the school system? That's what I'm having trouble with.
But if you did not have that failure rate the year before with the same group of kids, if you didn't go 5 for 30, are these 8th graders? I mean, I'm guessing is this 8th grade graduation?
High
These are
school.
seniors.
Seniors. Okay, so excuse me, I was thinking Pugs' kid. So in the situation where these are now seniors, and 3 or 5 of 30 something are graduating, they couldn't have had that same percentage as sophomores to juniors. I mean,
Well, I don't know,
something
look,
had to go
obviously,
haywire.
look, you're trying to take a larger view of this, which is understandable if we're going to try and really get to the root core. Do we have those numbers? Do we know how many kids graduated last year, James?
Well, I know if I was a
But
parent.
is this like over the course of the last 10 years, it's just gotten exponentially worse every year? Or is
I know when I was there, the state came in and seized control of the school
Okay.
board, and the state had come in and fired the superintendent, and that was in 2016, maybe 2017 at the
Can I
latest.
ask?
So
Are a lot of the students in this school are they like first generation? Is there English being spoken at home? Like, could that be it? I mean, are they new to the country?
no, it's just
Are these a bunch of immigrant kids that the school district isn't capable of teaching?
no, it's just a poor small town in a very unpopulated county. You know, there's weird pockets in Texas where just nobody lives, and so there's an entire county right there where maybe 4,000 people live. So if you have just a couple of screw ups, and then there's no generational escape hatch, there's no industry, there's no air conditioning plant, or the
Right. No
car
coal
for
mine.
your-
Coal mine.
yeah, there's no industry going on there, so it's just a bunch of people who are all just treading water. And when you're in a higher populated, more densely, populated area, these people kind of get averaged out when you go to schools with 1,000 people in them. But if you go to school and there's only 33 people in your senior class, and most of you are trailer trash or just poor rural people, sometimes you just lay some eggs.
Wow, I so disagree with that.
Well, go ahead. Let me hear it.
Well, I mean, he's basically saying because you are trailer trash, you're incapable of being educated.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of did because you said that neighborhood.
Well, can I have a little? Can you allow me a little nuance where we agree that people of lower socioeconomic status tend to perform lower on academic achievement metrics as well? I don't think that's such a shocking or offensive
That's why
statement.
people spend ridiculous amounts of money sending their kids to very good schools. Yes, because
But I would not. I would find it as the school district's problem for generationally kids coming out and performing at 5 of 33 or whatever that percentage is. I mean, the state of Texas ranks school districts, based on test scores that the kids get. And then ultimately, I guess that's graded into some form, way, shape, or form into the real estate purchasing, matrix, because schools are rated in school districts, and generally then those property values are higher. So somewhere I'm thinking that if you have a school district which is traditionally falling at the bottom end of education for kids, that's a education problem. It's not necessarily just socioeconomics.
Yeah, well, this city, Marlin is the city we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Marlin, Texas. Holy shit. I am just sort of skimming through the history of this city, this place. This place was rocking until the 1970s. This place was the mineral water capital of America. They had mineral water from the Brazos River. Apparently, they found like these mineral springs. This place, Marlin, Texas.
Was it like a bathhouse?
No, bottled, not bottled, but here, let me find it for. Anyway, it was called the mineral water capital of America. They had that was that drove the economy. This mineral water business. I don't know what it was. Was it for visitors? I don't know, because they didn't have bottled water in the 1930s when this time.
Right, they didn't have glass bottles of that stuff going around the country.
But dude, check this out. This little city that we're shitting on. It's a totally forgotten city. Starting in 1904, all the way through the 1950s, Marlin, Texas, was spring training home to the Chicago White Sox, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Cincinnati Reds, the New York Giants. It was a spring training location. There were hotels. These mineral springs apparently brought a whole bunch of people, and because of its easy access via rail between Houston and Dallas, it became a place that 1905 St. Louis Cardinals, they were the first ones in. The St. Louis Cardinals chose Marlin Springs as their 1905 spring training site after delays in preparations on a site outside Houston. As a result, the Chicago White Sox then also chose to train in Marlin. I mean, this place was a happening place.
That's wild.
And now it's just complete garbage. Now it's just, the industry went away and spring training stopped coming there in the 1950s. God damn.
But yet states mandate that you have to pass a certain curriculum in order to move on to the next grade.
Yeah, they fudged that pretty well.
Let's see here. Notable people. Let's see if there's anybody from, because I always find this interesting when you pull up a city, just random cities. See, anybody famous from that city?
How can they have notable people from Marlin?
LaDainian Tomlinson, the great San Diego Charger and New York Jets running back.
Wow.
TCU.
Was born in Marlin. Also, how about Coach Carter? You know that film, Coach Carter, that Denzel Washington played? The real Coach Carter was born there and raised there. Billy Willie Johnson.
What did Coach Carter do? Who is that?
Coach Carter was a movie. Ken Coach Carter.
But I guess he's a real dude too, but I don't know what he did. So.
I don't know. I didn't see the movie.
Sorry.
I didn't see the movie.
Me neither.
Basketball.
All right, keep in mind.
LaDainian Tomlinson. A bunch of like Texas state politicians, and that's it. But there you go. LaDainian Tomlinson is not bad for a small ass town. I ain't got no LaDainian Tomlinsons from my town. There you go, Marlin, one of America's forgotten towns.
So when we just remember next time we have that discussion, like how many kids were in your graduating class? How many kids were in your graduating class? 300 pugs.
Oh no, my graduating class was 8, maybe 900. It was we had 2,500, almost 3,000 kids in my school. Yeah, we were a big high school, 6A.
How big was yours?
I have to go through. I'm seeing 300-400, I think. Yeah, I don't remember.
So I had 189. Marlin had 5.
They canceled the whole show. It's over with.
That's great.
All right. Well, I am up.
I just think 5 out of 30 is just shocking.
It's a disappointing year, Marlon. It's disappointing.
Something's going
You
on
let us
there.
down.
I mean, if I was a parent, I don't know that I would feel bad.
What do you mean?
I mean, I would be upset that my
I
kid.
think that's the problem. I don't think these parents feel anything about their kids.
I mean, I would be upset that my kid wasn't going to graduate, but I
Would you?
don't know that 5 out of 30 something.
You're living in a trailer on the outskirts of Marlin. you really think you're upset your kid ain't graduating high school? Hadn't you given up on that dream 3 years ago? The first time the cops brought him home? No? Okay. Well,
I don't think because you live in a trailer you want your kid to be, or you accept your kid being less educated. I think you understand, because you're living in the trailer, that it may be your lack of education that's kept you there.
yeah. I think there might be some people who are, in that class. I think most people just. James, anything in closing? I mean, I don't know how to answer that. Other than I think you're giving way too much credit to a lot of people who I believe have probably given up.
My theory is most
about education and stuff like that. Yeah, James.
My theory is most of us would end up in a similar situation if we were in vastly different schooling scenarios, and I don't know, some of us would be better off, some of us would be a little worse off, but we wouldn't be that much different because people didn't really go to school until fairly recently, and like Thomas Jefferson could read ancient Greek and I can't, and he didn't go to school.
Yeah,
so.
But where we got started,
Thomas Jefferson was not a poor kid. He had tutors, he had special teachers, he had all of the advantages that the 1% would have now. Yeah.
But where we got started on this was, if you were a parent, would you be upset? And I would be upset that my kid didn't pass, but I don't know that I would necessarily be upset at my kid if 28 out of 30, or 80%.
Oh yeah, he's been provided some cover. That's for sure. It's not like
right. If the other 80% didn't pass either, I'm
blow. He's making a point. We agree. It's not as bad.
All right. Yeah, it is. If you're the only one, then yeah, that's pretty bad. But when it's everyone else too, you can go, I don't know, man. I think the fix was in. You've got plausible deniability.
But are you going fix, or are you going, wow, man, this education in this place sucks?
Well, is that the case? Is that the case, or is it the student? That's okay. I don't want to go around and around it, but that's I think it's probably a combination of both. I don't know if in the poorest corners of American society that education is really something that's a premium is put on in the household, so much as just making a quick buck or whatever. I don't know. I think education is the luxury of the elite. I think those are the only people who truly. I mean, actually, you know what? Now that we bring this up, I grew up around a lot of working class people, and I know that you did too, E. I mean, it was fairly common, people that I grew up around, that they weren't going to college. They were going to join the army, or they were going to, go get their union card or something like that. Did you have people like that when you were growing up? I mean, everybody didn't go to college, right?
Sure. I mean, college.
The working class.
College was is more prevalent now than it was then, by way more, and a lot of people would not consider themselves.
I knew
college material.
Yes, exactly. I knew pork, and whether they were college material or not, I don't know that that's something they ever got to self-realize. I think that's just a label that was put on them because of the circumstances that they were brought up in. I had friends who were poor, who from the time they were freshmen in high school, they never entertained any dreams of going to college. They knew they weren't going to college. They were hoping,
right,
to get like a union card or something like that.
Yeah, those kids would look generally to try to get on in the trades. Yeah. Like, could I be an electrician? Could I be a carpenter? Could I be, somebody that worked on a construction site?
Or get a job, drop out at 17 and get a job.
Right. There were a lot of kids that I knew of because of their possibly elderly parents that weren't employed in an occupation that had a lot of money. They just needed to get out of the house and start earning money at 16 or 17 or 18 years old, bringing that bank back to the house. And that wasn't going to happen at college. If anything, money was going out the door if you were going to college. And a lot of families could not afford for that money to go out the door. If anything, they needed the kids to start paying rent that were living in the house.
Yeah. Education was always... My family was big on education, but I mean, I could see that in other families in the same social stratus as us didn't really care that much about it. James, anything in closing? Let's get out of here. We've gone over.
Yeah, go watch the Florida Stories podcast. Download it wherever you already listen to podcasts: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the good stuff. Amazon Music.
All right, there he goes. E, got anything to plug?
Yeah, Florida Stories on Netflix. Good thing to watch.
That's Florida Man.
Not related to James's Florida Man.
No. James's Florida Stories. Netflix is Florida Man. Oh, God. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow at noon.